doing for the next half an hour or so is just sort of presenting this week's material. Like Maitri Bandhu said at the start of the class, we're going to be moving into the next sort of sphere of mindfulness. And I just want to re-emphasize something that he said last week. It's not like we sort of go from one sphere of mindfulness to a next, and then we sort of forget about that thing, and then we kind of like move on to the next practice. So it's sort of it's more like they build on each other. Yes, they build on each other. You can think about what Maitri Bandhu talked about last week as really looking at the sphere of the body and really sort of like stepping out of our heads into our body. So really being mindful of the body. And then this week, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of enter the body even more deeply. We're going to enter the body even more deeply and look at a particular thing called Vedana, which is a Buddhist word. It's a Buddhist word, and it means something like feeling sensation. It means something like hedonic tinge. So I watched a video of Maitri Bandhu teaching last week, and one of the things I was... it was good, but it was a bit strange because you cut your head off at about here. Sorry. But it was good. It was good. The thing that I was most taken by in what Maitri Bandhu said was this thing about the dragon head and the snake's body. So kind of a lot of you are nodding. And so, that's very sort of it's an interesting image, isn't it? And it's sort of an image that sort of speaks to something of our inner experience. And it's a bit like this week. What we're trying to do is to try to flesh out the body a little bit more. So in my head, I've got this image of like, when children draw stick figures, you get like a circle for the head and then a line down for the body, 2 little legs and 2 little arms. And it's a bit like we're trying to like take the big head and sort of move that through the body so that the body gets a little bit more fleshed out. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to flesh out the body a little bit more. So this thing of Vedana, this mindfulness of Vedana, helps us do that. So what Vedana is hedonic tinge, how it's sort of defined, I guess you could say, as hedonic tinge, or feeling sensation. And it's often talked in terms of the kind of direct experience of pleasant, painful, neutral. Yeah, so the direct experience of pleasant, painful, neutral. It's not feeling as an emotion, where we feel like rejected or sad. It's not that kind of feeling. It's sort of like pre that, yeah? It's sort of pre that feeling of rejection or, pre that feeling of whatever, anger. And it's really, really important that we go back to that, to go back to this Vedana, because it's upon Vedana that we build our experience, we build our world in a way, we build our lives, our experience based on Vedana. We build our experience based on Vedana. I thought I'd just sort of tell you a little bit of an anecdote to illustrate this. So when I started my first career, it was quite like a glamorous job. So I was working in the city, and I used to have these suits with like these little skirt suits, and I also used to wear these really high heels. And I had like this collection of high heels at work underneath my desk, and then another collection of high heels at home. And I was telling my mother about them, and she just also like, but are they comfortable? Are they comfortable? And I was like, yeah, of course they're comfortable. In the kind of way where you say like, when your mom says like, are you sure that skirt's not too short? It's like, yeah, it's not too short. Are you sure that those heels are not too high? Yeah, they're not too high. My mom goes like, are you sure they're comfortable? And I'm like, yeah, they're comfortable. And then she just sort of says, do you know why your dad's always in such a bad mood and why he always gets angry with people? It's because his shoes pinch. Because he never spends enough money to buy proper shoes. And his shoes pinch, and that's why he's always in such a bad mood. And, it's sort of funny, but I really love my dad, and he's a very, very good man. He's a very generous man. But I do think there is some truth in that. And you kind of know that, if you know when you're trying to break in a pair of shoes that you just bought the wrong shoes because they look nice, but they really don't fit. You know how irritable you are by the end of the day because they're painful and your feet are bleeding. You've got these big blisters and it's just a bad day. It just ruins your day. And what happens when we're not sort of careful is that we get hijacked by that. We get hijacked by that pain. We sort of unconsciously react to it, and then we get angry with our partner. My dad gets annoyed with my mom, or he gets annoyed with us. I get annoyed with my husband, or my colleagues, or people around me. So thinking about the washing up. We're more likely to get upset about the washing up if we've had a bad day. If we're sort of in pain, if we're cold, if we're tired, if we're hungry, we're more likely to react to other people, react to situations. Don't know if you guys know this word hangry, like hungry with an A. I don't like my Japan do. So it's like hungry, angry. So it's one of those I don't know. Yeah, it's a word these days. I think hangry, really captures why we need to be conscious of Vedana. It's like, if we're hungry, it's like, oh yeah, we're just hungry. But it's very, very easy when we're hungry and we're tired to then get angry, yeah? So we need to really sort of recognize Vedana as Vedana so that we don't, get hijacked by it. And no one's sort of talking about the painful side of the spectrum of Vedana. The sort of downside of not recognizing the pleasurable side of Vedana is that we just miss it. A lot of the time here at the Buddhist Center, we talk about wanting to live a richer, sort of deeper, more meaningful, more fulfilled life. And actually, one of the sort of basic practices to do that is to really notice pleasure, to really, really notice when we're having pleasure, to sort of train ourselves to notice when we're having pleasure. I suppose human evolution, animal evolutions meant that we're really sort of creatures that are built for survival. We have this sort of really good, efficient, and effective flight or fight mechanism, and sort of evolved that way. We're evolved to problem solve. We're evolved to move away from danger, move away from uncomfortable experience. We're not really evolved to pay attention to things that are good. Yeah. So we kind of almost need to sort of bend the stick the other way in a way, so that we really can pay attention to pleasure. We need to know what pleasure is. Because if we don't, life does get gray. Yeah, there's a lot of energy. A lot of energy can get sort of stagnant, I guess, when we don't have enough pleasure in our lives. When we don't have enough pleasure in our lives. So we need to practice getting back to Vedana as the building blocks of our experience. And one thing that's quite important to know here is that we experience Vedana through the body. So we experience Vedana through our senses, and also in Buddhism, our mind is also a sense. It's also a sense organ, so sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and then in Buddhism we also have the mind. So it's not just that some of us like peanut butter and olives and beer, and some of us don't, or some of us like smells of certain things, and some of us don't, or we enjoy, we get sort of hit of pleasure when we smell fresh coffee, and then some of us coffee just stinks. even our thoughts have a particular hedonic tinge. Even our thoughts have a particular Vedana. So, most of you probably know I was away last week. I was away on solitary, and I came back on Sunday. I had to come back to work on Monday. I work at the London Buddhist Centre. I have the sort of enormous privilege of working at the London Buddhist Centre. It's a lovely, supportive environment to work in. But I did have that thought on Sunday. The Sunday night thought? I have to go back to work tomorrow, and I really don't want to go. That thought has a hedonic tinge. That thought kind of goes like, ouch, I really don't want to go. So if I'm not careful, it could go into like, I really don't want to go, and I really don't want to be in the office, I really don't want to be teaching that yoga class, and I can't care less. And it can just kind of like proliferate into prapancha. And what happens then is that you get a great big knot, you get a great big tangle. But once I just kind of thought, like, oh yeah, that is just a thought. And as far as I can remember, these thoughts, these expectations, they never bear out. The thought of going to work on Monday morning is actually worse than the actual experience of going to work on Monday morning, But often we forget, and we just believe the thought, and we let the thought run, and just sort of like tie ourselves up into knots. Yeah. I think this thing of sort of stepping out into our head and sort of like fleshing through the body is really, really important. When I was away on retreat, on solitary, so I was on a retreat by myself in this really, really, really beautiful setting. I was in a little cottage, just about 250 meters from the beach. And that strip of coast sort of looks out into France. And at that low tide, there's this beautiful beach. I didn't know that when I got there. That there was a beautiful beach at low tide. I was kind of thinking, oh, shingle beach, English beach. But what I sort of said to myself, I made myself go like, okay, every single day I'm going to walk on the beach, and just sort of made it a bit of a practice, because I know myself that if I don't make myself do it, I won't really go, because I don't really think I'm the sort of person who enjoys walking, even though every single time I do it, I do. See, this thing of like really forgetting. And then as the retreat progressed, about 2/3 of the way through, I kind of, as these things I want to do, and just sort of hit a pocket of resistance, I guess, hit a pocket of doubt in my experience. And it was really, really strong. And then the sort of narratives were really, really strong. And I could sort of maybe say a little bit about what they were. It was a bit kind of like, oh, I'm not really wanted, and I'm not really appreciated. So I'm not really appreciated, and I'm not really wanted. And when I was in the grip of that, it's really easy to find evidence for the narratives. That's all that happens, with the thinking. We sort of find evidence to sort of shore up our view, of our opinion or our assumption. We sort of find evidence in our memory, I guess. And in a way, like, memory's not even that reliable. Like, everyone in this room will have a different memory of tonight. So memory's not even that reliable. But there I was, sitting in my little cottage, sort of in meditations, and a lot of time out of it as well, just sort of like thinking about the different times people didn't look at me or didn't say that the class was great, or, and so on and so on. And I just got myself into such a tangle. And I was thinking, okay, just relax. And I'm like, I can't relax. Like, everyone hates me. And I was like, okay, let's see if you can just feel into Vedana, because I knew I was going to I was going to be teaching tonight about Vedana. I was like, let's see if we can feel the Vedana. I was like, I can't. Actually, I was just like so tight It was just so tight, I couldn't even like get to the feeling sensation. Anyway, time for walking, so I went to my walk. And it was a really, really beautiful day. So, I mean, I must really say, I grew up in the tropics, and I really don't understand English beaches. Although maybe after this solitary, I understand it a little bit more. The other thing I don't really like about English beaches, maybe I'll just say this, is that the wind blows and it's cold. It does, doesn't it? It's like and it blows and it's cold, and like my ears get really, really painful. Anyway, it wasn't a day like this. It wasn't a day like this. It was just like a really, really beautiful, really calm day. And the tide was out, and so this massive, massive beach appeared. And I walked on the beach, and I walked on the beach, and I walked on the beach. And at some point, I turned so that I was looking out onto the rest of the beach and then the sea. And just at that moment, there was no one else on the beach, and no one else. Sort of, I don't know, sometimes there are boats and things, you know. I sort of felt alone. Just for that few moments, I felt alone. And then there was this really, really flat beach, and then it sort of like merges into the sea, and then it sort of merges into the sky. And suddenly, I just sort of felt myself relax and crack open. And then I just felt really sad, and I started to cry. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is it. I am just now back with my experience. I'm out of this everyone hates me story. I'm just back into like, oh, I think I'm unhappy. I'm uncomfortable inside. So, in a certain sort of way, even though, I don't know whether that sort of story has landed with you, that it's quite sad or something, it wasn't a sad experience. Actually, it was like a very, very rich experience. And actually, it was a very, very positive experience, yeah? So it's really, really important, I think, this thing of understanding how we can get back to the very, very basic building block of our experience. It could be that, you just sort of, with little things, you can just sort of feel into yourself, like with the, I don't want to go to work, you can just sort of feel into yourself and go like, oh yeah, that's just a thought. I'm just a little bit resistant. I think I just need to relax and go to sleep. Or, like with much more sort of tangled stuff, we need to completely have a change of perspective, and then something else might happen. I slightly got sidetracked there. Okay. All right. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to say is that actually this thing about Vedana is that it is quite mysterious what this pleasant, painful, neutral is. So we can have an idea that like bodily aches are uncomfortable and they're undesirable, or that they're painful. They're sort of straightforwardly painful. But actually, once we start engaging with our physical pain, for example, it's actually not quite that. Usually, so I'm not sort of talking in the area of like really terrible chronic pain. I'm talking about like, our shoulders ache or our hips ache a little bit in meditation, or our knees ache in meditation. I'm kind of more talking about at that level. Usually when we start to sort of investigate it's not quite what it seems. But a little bit like the thought about Monday morning going to work, the idea of it is actually worse than the thing. The kind of like, my knee hurts and there's 20 more minutes of meditation and how am I going to make it through? Or, got this really terrible cold. I'm at the opera with a hot date. I really can't cough or sneeze, and like it's just gonna be like running down my face. It's so unattractive when the lights go up. The cold itself, the feeling itself, the cough itself, or the knee itself. Once we sort of like get to it, it's not really it's usually not really that painful, or even if it is quite painful, it changes. It changes, yeah. Yeah, at the moment I have this thing where when I wake up in the morning, sometimes my knee aches quite a lot, my ankles ache quite a lot. I had these quite bad injuries when I was a kid growing up on my ankles, and I was sort of walking down the walking down the escalators to the tube today, and it's almost like I could hear my ankles. I don't know if you ever have that, like they're so rusty, like bits of yourself so rusty that you can hear them as you walk. And I was thinking, actually, it's sort of strangely pleasurable. It's not actually that painful, you know. It's not. It's almost like the fear of like, oh my God, my ankles ache. How am I going to get through my yoga practice? And you know, in 5 years' time, I'm going to be crippled. That is much more painful. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I just want to go back to enjoyment and enjoying ourselves. So I teach here at the London Buddhist Center, and one of the things I notice about people coming to the center, and maybe probably all of you, we all just have really, really busy lives. You know, London's a very, very expensive place to live, and probably to even sort of get your rent together, get our rent together, we're working like really, really hard and really long hours. And I suppose I started thinking about myself as a young woman starting out in my career. I was working really long hours. And I kind of didn't really know how to enjoy myself. And the thing is, this thing about having pleasure and sort of knowing how to get enjoyment and pleasure, it's not just that you know, we want to sort of safeguard our mental health. Or it is actually a spiritual practice, part of being a whole, healthy human being, is being happy, being joyful. And a real component of that is knowing how to enjoy ourselves, knowing how to get pleasure. So when I first came to the Buddhist Center, and I quite suddenly changed my life. So I was working really, really hard, really long hours, and in my spare time, most of the, like, that's the way I was trying to enjoy myself, was just to go out partying and go out drinking. And I worked really hard until my friends were free to go out with me, and then I'd just do that and then work really hard. So I kind of like had two modes in my life. One was working hard and the other one was partying. And then I came along to the Buddhist Center and then quite quickly stopped all the partying and also stopped all the working very hard. But then what then happened was that actually there wasn't anywhere where I didn't actually know how to enjoy myself. I didn't actually know how to have pleasure in my life. And this actually became quite a big problem for me. It was such a big problem that there was one year where everyone, as I was living I live in a Buddhist community, there was one year that people kept bringing home hobby kits for me. They kept bringing home like sock puppet kits or like model making kits, or I don't know, like sunflower growing kits. It was like, it's like everyone was like just trying to help me find out how it is that I gain pleasure, or like how I enjoy myself. So it's not like it's a small thing. Actually, if we don't really know how to be happy, if we don't really know where we find pleasure, that's actually a serious thing. It is a serious thing. Like all the way up to my ordination, even just before I got ordained, I had this interview with one of a really senior order member, and I was asking her, "What do you think I need to do to get ordained?" And she said, "Oh, I think Suyan. My name is Suyan. I think Suyan, you just need to be more naughty and have more fun. Yeah. So, it is a serious thing. It is a serious thing, knowing where it is that we have fun. Yeah. Now, I would encourage you to really read the book, if you haven't really started reading the book, to read the Life with Full Attention material, because Maitreya Bandha really has quite a lot to say about pleasure and the discipline of pleasure, and how to get pleasure. And I really sort of focus on that part of the chapter, because actually that is serious, that is serious. Yeah, maybe I won't sort of recap what he has to say, just to point you to it and to say that is actually a really important bit of what we need to be doing. Okay. So just going back to Vedana and the building blocks of our experience, it's not as if everything that we experience in life as pleasure is necessarily good, and that we should have more of it, and everything that is difficult or uncomfortable is bad and we should try to get rid of it. So Vedana is it's not sort of moral in that way, it's not sort of ethical in that way. It's a little bit like, I was thinking, there's some times when there's some things in life that are really, really pleasurable, but they're not really that good for us. And I was thinking about righteous indignation. When you're really angry and really ranty, but you're so right. And this thing of holding forth our view about why we're so right, that's really, really enjoyable. Some of you are laughing. I think it may be laughing knowingly. This thing, it is so enjoyable. Or, sometimes certain types of office gossip, can be sort of slightly, there's a frisson in it and it's enjoyable. But in a way, it is a bit malicious, or sometimes not even a bit. It is malicious, And righteous indignation is actually angry. It is actually anger. So it's not as if everything that's pleasurable is good and we should have more of it. And also, it's not as if everything that's bad or that's uncomfortable is necessarily bad. Sometimes when we've realized that we've actually hurt somebody, we've been mean or nasty, that realization that we've been mean or nasty is actually really uncomfortable. No one likes apologizing. That's just really, really uncomfortable. Or even something much more innocuous, if you're overdressed or underdressed, or you've got the wrong leggings on, somebody in our little group was saying. That thing of sort of feeling like you walked into a party and everyone's come as a hipster and you're in a ball gown. You know what I mean? It's uncomfortable. But that's in a way there's no sort of morality in that, So it's not as if everything that's uncomfortable, is necessarily bad. But, as long as we can come back to that, come back to the discomfort, or probably even in the moments of really, really enjoying that little bit of office gossip, that little bit of news that you've passed on, which you kind of know that you shouldn't. If you really sort of investigate that, go deeper in towards it, sort of rather than I'm not going to think about that. So really investigate the bodily sensations of it, really investigate the implications of it in a way. That will lead us to a little bit more of a natural morality. I don't mean natural morality in sort of holy way, but just sort of just wanting to be the best that we can be, wanting to sort of be free, be free from ourselves. Okay. So this thing in training ourselves to pay attention to bodily sensation, to pay attention to direct experience, to pay attention to sort of stretch our attention away from mind into the body is something that I'm really interested in. One of the reasons why I teach yoga here at the London Buddhist Center is for that very, very reason, that it's a mind training to sort of train our attention into the body, to stretch our attention into the body. Yeah, and it is a training and it is a discipline. It is training and it is a discipline. So, I mean, it's not like I'm saying like everyone should do yoga, although in a way I kind of am. I think it's a bit more like it would be really, really good if you did do something, whether it's yoga or qigong or swimming, a kind of physical activity where you're mainly trying to stay with sensation. Maybe it's a bit of a dated concept, but do you guys know like about exercising and getting into the zone? The zone, like you sort of like enter a zone. One of the ways to enter the zone is actually through feeling the body, feeling into the body. It sort of alters your conscious state, yeah? So I think that's really, really important because physical activity gives us Vedana, and particularly repetitive physical activity. We can really sort of like go into it. When it's repetitive, like yoga or qigong or swimming or running, when it's repetitive, we start to really notice this thing that Vedana changes. We start to notice this thing that we kind of notice this thing where we can go into Vedana. Something happens in the body. Maybe we get into a stretch, or we hold the posture for too long, or we start to get shin splints, and then the mind just goes, "Oh my God, this is going to happen. I'm going to tomorrow I won't be able to run. Tomorrow I won't be able to swim. In 5 years' time." And then, if we can't keep repeating it's usually different. Yeah, it's usually different. So I would really encourage you to do some physical activity. It is really important. And it's almost like doing that in support of your meditation practice. If you want to get good at Vedana, sort of look at it outside of your life, yeah, and then sort of see if you can apply it in meditation. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to be asking you to do for the rest of the week, on top of the sort of little body scans, breathing spaces that you've been doing, on top of the mindful walk that you've been doing, is that this week we're going to be asking you to also meditate every day, to see if you can meditate every day. And we sort of started off this course as saying that it's an intensive course in mindfulness. And as I was saying in the little group I was in, the course builds on itself. So if you've been doing the kind of reducing input and completing cycles and trying to get some mastery in your life, actually what you'll find is that it'll be easier to do the little breathing spaces, to do the little body scans, and it will be easier to do the mindful walking, even if it is just remembering to do the mindful walking, yeah? If you reduce input, if you complete cycles, it will be easier to do week 2. If you have the mindful walks, if you have the little breathing spaces, it will be easier to add in 20 minutes of meditation, and then it will be easier then to also go on to week 4 and 5 and so on. So the homework for this week, in addition to what you've been doing, if you can keep it up, is to see if you can also add in at least 20 minutes of meditation. And I don't know whether 20 minutes sounds like a lot for some of you, or if you don't have a meditation practice, 20 minutes might sound a lot. If you've been meditating for quite a long time, now 20 minutes might not be very much, and I would encourage you to sort of keep the normal length of your meditation. And actually, what I find with my meditation, I think I used to find that 20 minutes was a lot, but nowadays actually I think that if we only give ourselves 20 minutes, we have to be pretty concentrated for 20 minutes. When I was away on retreat, actually I was meditating quite a lot in the mornings, and I was telling my friend about my meditation regime, I guess, on retreat, and then she just all said, that's really hardcore. But it didn't actually feel like that. It's a little bit like the more time I gave myself, the easier it was to meditate, the sort of more relaxed I could be. It's like I don't have to like reach 10 in 3 minutes, I don't have to sort of like squeeze it in to 3 minutes. There's like one stage 3 minutes, then a bell, and then the next stage 3 minutes, and then a bell. If you can sort of give yourself more time, if you can give yourself more than 20 minutes, actually what you'll find is that you can relax more and you can get into it more. At the same time, like I know you guys live busy lives, and even meditating 20 minutes might mean that 20 minutes less sleep. So, at the very, very least, give yourself 20 minutes. Or actually give yourself half an hour. Give yourself half an hour. Give yourselves half an hour and spend 5 minutes sort of like really setting yourselves up well. And then 5 minutes to just sort of not rush, not sort of like bolt out the door the moment you get off your cushions. Yeah. Is there anyone in the room who's not learned to meditate outside of this course? Okay, so all of you do have some experience with meditation, so that's really good. In the book, Maitreya Bandhu sort of suggested 7 different little meditations that you can do every day, for not every day 7, but like 1 per day. And it sort of like takes you. Sorry, don't do 7 a day. It'll take you forever. Well, that'd be good, But just do 1 a day. But I would sort of suggest that you do read that as well, because it just gives you a little bit more of a flavor. And in a way, that will sort of really take you into your body and take you into Vedana. Yeah. So have a little look at the practice notes for the week, and I did them on retreat, and they are really good and they are effective. So do them. And like I said, give yourself as much space as you can. And a lot of us who meditate a lot, I think most of the people, most of the practitioners I know tend to meditate in the morning, mainly because then it's done. But you might not be a morning person, so it doesn't actually have to be in the morning. Although if you do meditate in the morning, it just means that your mind's a little bit clearer. Yeah, you might not be a morning person, but it is really important to kind of decide now, if you don't already have a regular meditation practice, when you're going to do it. To sort of like decide in advance, rather than get up to 11 o'clock at night on Thursday night, and just think, oh no, I haven't done it, and then like try to meditate and fall asleep. So what we'll do in a few moments is we'll just get into pairs, and maybe see if you can tell your partner how you're going to sort of set up your meditation practice, how you're going to find the time in your day to do it, whether you're going to do it in the morning, when you wake up, or when you're going to do it after work, before dinner, or maybe even after dinner. If you don't already have a meditation practice at home, see if you can sort of say where you're going to do it as well. So I am assuming that you're going to do it at home. Can you say where in your house you're going to do it, how you're going to set yourselves up? Yeah, and sort of how long for, sort of suggested 20 minutes. I really wouldn't recommend going less than that, but some of you might want to do more. So let's do that. Let's get into pairs. See if you can talk to your partner about meditation.